I'm a child neurology physician scientist, which means that I spend the majority of my time doing research. And, to do research in this kind of academic setting basically means you have to get your own funding to pay for your time to do research because it's not funded by the university. And so my typical life looks like I have clinic about one afternoon per week where I see patients in the brain tumor clinic, and I'm a neurologist there, so I see children who have brain tumors who have neurological problems such as seizures or headaches, whatever they might need from me. And then the rest of the time I spend in the lab doing lab work, investigating, doing actual hands-on stuff, and a lot of writing grants, writing papers, giving talks. I used to go around and give talks all the time, different places, and with COVID I give lots of virtual talks, but this week I'm going to my first talk again in Stanford, so it's fun. It's very varied. I have complete control pretty much over what I do when in my time, which is really nice, but it's also very challenging because you can spend as much time as you possibly could doing more stuff. So, which is the problem with all doctors. Yeah, so CAR T cells, just to briefly explain how it works, these are the patient's own immune cells, T cells, that are taken from the blood and then genetically modified with a receptor that can recognize cancer cells or whatever else you want. And because T cells are naturally programmed to kill targets, this modified receptor basically transduces a signal to the T cell to kill the target. So, and this has, in the last 10 years really revolutionized cancer treatment, especially for blood cancers such as leukemia and lymphoma, where it works really, really well. The issue with this is that it can be really toxic, it may not work, and it's extremely expensive. So typically the patients that get this treatment are patients that have already gone through the ringer, have had so many different treatments, a bunch of relapses, and they have really no options left. So that's the thing that's probably, will shift at some point if we can show that this therapy is actually more gentle than chemotherapy and radiation, and it can actually work really well as an upfront therapy, but we're not there yet. The other big issue is that it works for blood cancers, but we haven't really gotten it to work for brain tumors or other solid tumors very well, and it's not super clear why that is. But this is a huge money-making potential. So there is lots of companies are really interested in doing a lot of work. And again, what we're doing at Children's, we are looking at pediatric targets because a lot of the pediatric cancers are rare, and these targets aren't something that's going to make anybody a ton of money. So we fund the trials through philanthropy and public funding to bring them to children when we have much more rare types of cancer. Oh goodness. What is so funny, I just got this book that I found somewhere, Surviving Your Stupid Decision to Go to Grad School. I'm reading that for anybody who's thinking about grad school. It's really funny. It's a little bit little raunchy. But anyway, I was completely naive, had no clue what was going on. I think you guys are all more sophisticated. To me, it was like, oh, this is so interesting, the brain. I like to, I want to challenge myself and do the hardest thing that's possible. And I know I can get into an MD Ph.D. program, so I'm just going to do that. And the Ph.D. will be such a fun time. That was basically the extent of my thought process, which like right now wouldn't, that wouldn't work. I think it's gotten so competitive that you have to have a lot more specific ideas and goals. I think I had more specific ideas and goals, but that is like the honest assessment. It's really like, why not do it? It's really hard and I can do it, so I'll do it. Because the practical implication of having a PhD is mostly that you're going to be old when you graduate. You will have more of an idea to do lab-based science. I see my peers who do physician scientist tracks who don't have a PhD. For them it's much harder to break into the lab-based science, but that doesn't mean they can't, because if you do a fellowship after residency training, you have that time to do lab-based research. So I don't, I think right now what I tell people is the PhD is only for people who just can't help themselves, who like love science so much and they're such huge nerds that they cannot stop themselves. And that's the only reason to do it. And that's my honest opinion. Yeah, it's such an important, interesting question. So I think the thing that's really unique about pediatrics, especially pediatric neurology, is that caregiving. Because children, many of our patients have extremely high care needs. They're dependent on their parents for everything. And the parents, of course, that's what they do. They take care of their children. And what I see in our, because it's never just the patient. You don't have just the child as a patient. The child is always in the context of their family. We see a lot of extremely young parents, like 16-year-olds, born, who have a baby who has very high medical needs, needs around-the-clock care. And how is a 16-year-old supposed to do this? And the 16-year-old who has a baby is not somebody who comes from a rich and well-educated and resource-rich background. So it's absolutely amazing how people rise to the occasion. I'm just in complete awe of these people who dedicate their life to their child. But it means for them they're not going to have a career, they're never going to make any money, they're always going to be on maybe family assistance and public assistance. And the way our society treats these people is just not great. Because if your job is to take care of your child, then you should be supported and not have to be impoverished. But that's what they are, they're impoverished. And then, and of course people, in our society, people of color are more likely to be poor. They're less likely to have jobs that can accommodate this kind of stuff, like caregiving. So that's a really big one. So basically, if you have a high needs child, you're going to be poor unless you're somehow really lucky, you have a spouse who makes good money and can stay home, or somehow you can get caretakers for your child, which is really, really hard right now to get. So that it just really sharpens the inequity that already exists, because our society doesn't really take care of these kids in the way that it should. Yeah. And as far as, so we take care of everyone, of course, that's what the one part that I really love about my job. I get to see people from rural, wherever, they're like, we don't trust doctors, we're just going to do our own thing. And then you have to negotiate with them, people who have had adverse experiences with the medical system. And then you also get these kind of the tech people who are like super uptight and they're like know everything, they've read everything, and those can be the most challenging parents to deal with because they're so anxious. And they also don't trust you because they want to look everything up and they want to get a second opinion. And so, everybody is like, oh my gosh, this is so challenging. But I actually love it because I think I understand how scary it is for parents to have a sick child, and that they will do anything in their power to give their child a leg up. But yeah, I did the outreach clinic in Yakima. So we would just drive over to Yakima, have a few days of clinic, and there's a lot of Hispanic patients, lots of farm workers who have a really hard time getting across the mountains to Seattle. They don't have a car, they don't have time to take time off to take their child to the doctor, and so often those kids miss out on getting proper care because their parents can't bring them in. So us going there and doing outreach, people love it, I love it, and now I don't have time to do it and I really miss it. But I think those are things we can do to go to where people are, because our geography is so crazy. People will have to take an airplane. We have people going to Alaska to see patients in clinic, they fly out to Juneau, etc. And I think that's really great, like almost coming to the patient's home and bringing us there as opposed to them traveling forever. And then, telemedicine obviously has made that a lot easier, but in neurology is probably one of the specialties that most closely relies on actually touching your patient and doing the exam, and you learn things that you cannot learn any other way from examining your patient. And so it can be really scary to have a new patient that you can't really see very well, and we've had some instances where we missed something bad happening because we didn't see the patient. So.